Hello guys, Lululemon is a high-quality, temporary broken growth story. US demand and tariffs crash sentiment, but the balance sheet margins and international growth is still very strong. So is it a great stock to invest? Let's find out. And remember, it's not a financial advice, just my opinion, and I am still learning to invest. As you know, Lululemon was a market darling for a decade. Then the stock got crashed down around 65%, I think, from its peak, of course. Tariffs, weak US market sales, CEO changes, and everything. It made it a little bit ugly, but actually, I think CEO change is a good news. But just remember that I can be a little bit biased because I'm the owner of Lululemon. And as you know, this portfolio was built 5 months ago, and Lululemon was probably the second stock I was buying, and it was higher than now. So for a longer time, 5 months ago, when I started to buy, I was in the downside. Yeah, I never was profitable here. And currently I'm 10% up. It's almost 7% of my portfolio. And I'm really happy with that. And I believe we can go even higher. So as always, let's start from the balance sheet because first thing I want to see are numbers and what we have. So if we'll take a look into the annual revenue, we see that from 2021, they started to slow down bit by bit. And now they're still growing above 10%. And we see that this year is not done yet. And they will definitely be above 10% this year. So it's still good. It's not hyper growth like they were before. But 10% is a really good growth, in my opinion, especially with this price they have now. But if we will go to take a look into the quarterly, we see that this is more sad. We see that the growth is like 7%, 6.5%, 7 again. So it's high single numbers revenue growth. But overall, I believe that they can go to the low double digits in the future. The main thing is that the economy is really slow now and people have to choose something cheaper. Then other thing is that tariffs are hitting them a lot. Yeah. And when they will adapt to the tariffs, they will become much better, in my opinion. Also, the tariff can be stopped in the future, who knows, and then they can just skyrocket. Overall, the market for retail is not so good now, and that's why I am buying it, because overall, when the market is bad, the prices are usually lower for the stock. And when the market will be better, the stock will be much higher and it will be too late to buy. If we'll take a look into the annual net income, we see that the growth wasn't so consistent, but overall, we can take a look and see that they are growing. Yeah, so let's just turn off the total revenue and diluted shares outstanding. We see that overall they are going up. It's not so consistent, but still growth. And sometimes they have like 80% growth, sometimes it's 17, sometimes it's minus 12. So it's not bad, it's not great, but overall, commerce section is struggling now because of the US economy, because of the tariffs. And this is actually an opportunity to buy these stocks now because tariffs can be stopped later and company can adapt to tariffs. And overall, US economy should become better in the future. What I love about Lululemon actually is that they are buying shares back as crazy. And they also increased the sum of buyback by $1 billion this year. So I believe it's a really good thing here. If we'll take a look into the balance sheet, we see that the total assets are much higher than total liabilities. And the total assets growth is actually almost always higher than liabilities. And what we also can take a look that the current assets are also higher than liabilities. That is telling me that the balance sheet is really strong. If we will take a look into the annual free cash flow growth, we see that it is not so consistent, but overall it is going up as well. This year it will probably be lower just because they were investing a lot into the buybacks. They were changing the marketing policy. They were trying to attract the users with the ads of some stars. I actually think that this marketing policy failed, and this is probably one of the reasons why CEO will be changed. So let's take a look into valuation metrics. PE for this company is a little bit below than 15. And I believe this is a great number because they're still growing. They're growing much slower than they were, but they're still growing. And the forward P is 16, almost 17. This thing I don't like because analysts don't see the future probably in this company. But we know how often analysts were wrong. And I can be wrong as well. Don't think that I'm like a guru or something. Yeah. Price to free cash flow is 23, and I would say it's fair valued. It is a really good number. Not much companies can show that as well, and especially the companies which are still growing. If we'll dive into EPS this year, we see that it is minus 11%. And this is probably the main reason why they were falling so much. And also, analysts are expecting that the EPS next year will be negative. EPS next 5 year will be negative. And here, my opinion with analysts is a little bit different. Yeah, they are not expecting any growth in US, but I expect a huge growth in China. I expect a huge growth in Europe as well. We don't have too much stores of Lululemon in Europe, and China is the second market after US probably. China probably doesn't have this purchase force as US has, but the amount of people there is totally different. Yeah. And probably the main reason why I'm into Lululemon, if you take a look into the gross margin, it is 58, even above 58. Even Nike doesn't have that. And Nike has much stronger brand and they cannot afford to have this gross margin. The profit margin is above 15 for retail. It is a really great number. I really like that. So as always, let's talk about pros and cons, and let's start from the pros. And in my opinion, Lululemon has a strong brand and premium athleisure. Like nobody is so strong in the yoga pants and everything like Lululemon. Of course, Nike is a strong competition, but they have like overall good niche. But Lululemon is exceptionally strong in the niche of yoga and athleisure. Yeah. The second point is elite profitability. Gross margin is mid 50s and strong operating margins, comfortably ahead of Nike and Adidas in percentage terms, of course. Yeah, Nike and Adidas are much bigger companies, but if we're talking about the percentage margin, Lululemon is far ahead of Nike and Adidas, these two giants. Robust balance sheet, no net debt, what I love, more than $1 billion in cash, plus large buybacks of the shares, what is really great. And I believe the EPS can grow much higher if they will be making so many buybacks. International growth runway, yeah, 30 plus percent. As I mentioned, the growth in US is not really good, but outside US, like in China and Europe, they're growing pretty fast. And the speed will be increasing because there are no so much presence of Lululemon in Europe and China yet. Great valuation, P is below 15. The forward P is above 16, which is not great comparing to the 15, but still good. And change of CEO. Many people are telling this a risk. I agree with them as well, but for me it's a pro because the previous CEO wasn't so good in last years. I prefer to have something new, and I hope that it will be better than the last one. Let's talk about cons now, yeah? And the cons is US segment slowdown. Definitely, US is the biggest share of the business for the Lululemon. But as I mentioned, outside US, they're growing really fast. And maybe somehow, if the market will be better, Lululemon start to grow again. Tariffs directly compressing margins with no guaranteed timeline for relief. That's really true. And this is an issue. But if they will adapt to it, I think they can solve it. And also, tariffs can be stopped in one day. Who knows? Maybe Trump will see that economy is not so good and he will just stop the tariffs. Brand risk and competition. That's true. There are multiple competitors now for Lululemon, from players like Alo, On, Hoka, and copycat brands. If Lululemon loses its premium or margin structure could be at risk. So, what is the verdict? Is Lululemon a buy? It's a cheap, no debt, positive growth outside US stock. The stock has moved from too expensive to reasonably cheap on standard metrics like PE. They, as I mentioned, they are above 15 a little bit. And the price to free cash flow is really good as well. It's about 23, yeah. Despite the business still posting positive revenue growth, strong international momentum, and industry-leading margins. And hopefully they will start to grow in US again. The next one is low growth, struggles in economy. So the economy overall in the world is not the best. US is struggling as well. And luckily, international growth is really better than in US. Yeah, and I hope US will stabilize and the economy will be better and people will start to spend again. Yeah. So I believe they can grow up to double-digit growth, but even mid-single digits or high single digits is okay for this company because they are really discounted now. What analysts say, well, let's just review bull case, bear case, medium case, and my case. Yeah. So bearish scenario from analyst is 175, which is like lower than it is now. And I was buying the stock from 200 up to, I think, the lowest 170, something like that. Neutral scenario is 220, so not so really far from what it is now. It is now about 200 something. And the bullish scenario is $305. And I am between neutral and bullish. My price is about 280. I will start to sell probably Lululemon when we will be around 260. I will start gradually sell it, yeah. But I don't really believe that 305 is realistic now, but who knows? I can be wrong, yeah. So for the long-term fundamental investors, if you can handle volatility and wait some time in the range, for me, Lululemon is a moderate buy. But just remember, make your own research before buying it. If you found this breakdown useful, let me know in the comments what you think. Is Lululemon a buy, hold, or sell? And just remember to hit like, subscribe, and leave comment. This will definitely motivate me to make more videos. And yeah, remember, keep growing, guys.